Invasive species are one of the leading threats in native wildlife. Approximately 42% of threatened or endangered species are at risk primarily due to invasive species. An invasive species can be any kind of living organism. They can harm the environment, the economy, and even human health. Species that grow and reproduce quickly and spread aggressively with potential to cause harm are given the label of invasive. Invasive species are primarily spread by human activities, and they are often unintentionally.
How do invasive species affect the food chain in specific ecosystems? Invasive species can negatively impact ecosystems in a variety of ways. They can displace native species, reduce native wildlife habitat, reduce forest health and productivity, alter ecosystem process, degrade recreation areas. They affect ecosystems through spreading new diseases that native species may not have an immunity for. They reduce food availability for native species are competing for resources, therefore reducing populations of native species and establishing themselves. Invasive species cause harm to wildlife in many ways. When a new and aggressive species is introduced into an ecosystem, it might not have any natural predators or controls. It can breed and spread quickly, taking over an area. Native wildlife may not have evolved defenses against the invader, or they cannot compete with a species that has no predators. The indirect threats of invasive species are that they can change food webs. Invasive species can change the food web in an ecosystem by destroying or replacing native food resources. They can decrease biodiversity by altering the abundance or diversity of species that are important habitat for native wildlife, and altering ecosystem conditions. Some invasive species are capable of changing the conditions in an ecosystem, such as changing soil chemistry or the intensity of wildfires.
There are lots of invasive species in California. One of the worst is the cottontail, also known as the myelinated vine and the vine that ate the salt. The cotton vine is native to Japan, was first brought to the United States in 1876 when it was featured at the Philadelphia Centennial Exposition as a hardy, fast-growing vine that could help inhibit soil erosion. What they failed to mention at the exposition was just how fast they meant when they said kudzu was fast-growing. Since its introduction, kudzu has been spreading across the USA at a rate as fast as 150 miles across annually, due primarily to the fact that its individual vines can grow upwards of a foot per day in right conditions.
We can prevent the invasion of invasive species by not purchasing or translating animals or plants that do not belong to the new ecosystem. Also, before doing any trip, check if there isn't any animal or plant on your bag. This is a way that the living things can transport and you don't even notice and you start a plague. Monitor if there isn't any new infestations in your community. Use the plants that are originated from your region. Also, you have to be very clean with your environment and add pesticides for avoiding invasive species.
This is an example of a food web. First, the arrows represent how the energy flows. First, we have the grass. The grass obtains its energy from the sun. The grass is the producer. Then the rabbit, the little rat, and the grasshopper that are the primary consumers. eat the grass. Then the grass energy flows to them. Then the energy of the grasshopper flows to the owl and to the big rat because these animals eat the grasshopper. Then the energy of the little rat flows to the big rat and to the snake that are the secondary consumers. Then the owl eat the rabbit, so the energy of the rabbit flows to the owl. The owl is a tertiary consumer. Then when the owl eats the snake and the big rats, their energy flows to the owl. And that is an example of a food web.